So there will be a portion for discussion. You are able to contribute, whether it's through the chat or you can unmute and ask your questions or give your feedback. We welcome that and we encourage that. And also know this town hall is going to be recorded. So this will be available later on our Values Journey webpage. But for now, we're going to begin with the survey results that from the questions that were sent out back in January. So first, let me give you the background that allowed us to have the successful summit. Dr. Crystal Kreitler brought together the information and briefed the group on the results. And this is what the results had to say. First, we're going to look at the positive. So on the next screen, we'll be able to see the current values. This is what you gave us. This is the perception of our current values, where you think we stand right now. You can see some of those results. As you can see, we have a lot to be proud of, a lot of positive things going on. And so those are nice and positive descriptors. However, if we go to the next slide, we see that you can see in red some of the words that maybe aren't so positive, and that's okay. Maybe these are things that we need to address, that maybe need a little bit more attention. But we're listening. We're definitely listening. And then overall, on the next slide, we see these ideal values of what is it that we stand. During the summit, we looked at characteristics that identified who we are as a RAM fam as a whole. So we discussed the fact that this is what we're trying. Our goal here is not a transformation. It's more of a culture renovation. And so during the summit, we were given this analogy, which I really liked. It's the analogy of a 93-year-old house, which happens to be the age of ASU. But when you invest in an older home, you do that for a reason. And so just like an older home, ASU, we don't want to renovate. Tear it down and start from scratch. It's just about renovating. An older home has great structure and it has character and it has history. So all of those great things are things that we don't want to lose. What we want is just to renovate in a way that's going to enhance its value and its worth. And that's what we're trying to do here. On the next slide, we see the circled words: understanding, truthful, responsibility. So there were these key words that kept emerging throughout the summit. What we did is we split into groups, and there was a lot of discussion that was had. And we discussed three things. One, our own core values, what we personally hold dear. And then we also discussed, the second thing is the things that we share as a whole. What are those commonalities? And then the last thing we discussed was the values that we share that we also want to be part of our collective culture in our workplace at ASU. And the result is on our next slide. We identified these 5 values for ASU to build upon and to move as we move towards the centennial. So we defined them, but we also identified behaviors that will help us recognize when we are living those values. So what does this value look like? So if you go to the chat right now, you'll be able to download the most updated flyer. So this that you're looking at on your screen is what we came up with at the summit. Notice it says draft. That was the beginning document. What we are doing is, from these town halls, we're taking your input, your advice, your suggestions, and this is a dynamic document that continues to change. So if you go to that link, you can also go to angelo.edu/values, and you can grab the latest version, which is the one that we're going to use. So feel free to do that as I introduce Steve Soslin, who is going to carry us throughout the rest of this town hall. He's also the person that facilitated our summit last month. So a little bit about Steve, if you have not had the pleasure of meeting him. For those of you that don't know him yet, he is a professional disruptor, and he's good at it, and we welcome that. Organizations hire him to consult when they want to renovate their culture based on core values of their team members. He is an alumnus of the United States Military Academy at West Point, of Boston University, and of the University of Texas at Dallas. He brings a successful track record from 5 different industries, including higher education. He joined the tech system in January of 2018, and where he serves as the chief people officer for the systems for institutions in West Texas and beyond. So I am going to hand it over now to Steve, who's going to carry us for the rest of the town hall. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Flor. And I want to compliment each of you for choosing to have a voice in this process. And we need your input in order to make sure that what we end up with for a document of the values flyer is one that represents our whole team, all of the RAM family. So we're going to go through each of the core values, not the written version that you see now, but actually where we are based on the document that you're able to download from the chat. I want to go through that, and then we're going to open it up for discussion. So there are some ground rules, if you will, some criteria that we're going to use in order to determine to make changes. And first is to recognize that the 75 people that attended the summit were a broad cross-section of the diversity of our team, and there was intense discussion about these topics over the day and a half of the summit. So I want, in some cases, I want to just explain to you, and feel free to ask questions like, there are a couple words in here, like, why are we using this word? Why significance? Why conflict? And I want to be able to explain that to you based on the rich discussion that happened at the summit and how we can use that. In other cases, we're very open to making the changes that reflect what you all see, but let's do it if it makes an item more clear or concise. You're going to see that in some cases we have some long sentences. We need your help. Is there a way to stay true to the meaning and make it more concise? We also we've already seen where we have said, what we had originally written was good, but if we change a word or if we change a phrase, this is going to be a higher standard for us. And if that's the case, then let's do that. And then finally, I'll show you an example of where we've already removed something that was potentially offensive to some. It was unintentional and we didn't know it, but only in closer research did we get the feedback that we would have excluded people had we left the original language in. So I'll remind you of these in just a minute. Any questions before we get started? Okay, let's go through these. So if you can refer to your sheet, I'm just going to run through each of the values with you, and then we will open it up. I'll stop sharing the screen and we'll open up where we can get face-to-face. But under integrity, there's already been a change from the original form, and we had something in there that said demonstrate strength through unity of purpose. It sounded really great. We all liked it at the summit, and then we had somebody do some research only to tell us that part of that phrase had been used by a hate group. So we quickly wanted to edit that. We've already gotten help in that. We've added doing the right thing when no one is looking. That came from previous town halls. So this is, we want you to know that we're really listening to you, and we've got an editing team that is taking feedback from each of these town halls in order to make changes. The second is significance. And with significance, you'll find that the original team did a good job on keeping it concise. We actually made one change, and that is on the second bullet, we added of self and others to make it more clear. Here's diversity and inclusion. And I'm really proud of the RAM fam for adding diversity and inclusion among the core values. I will tell you that it's been included in behaviors with some of the other universities, but you're the first university to put that so boldly and listing it as one of our values. Now, one of the comments that has come up in a previous town hall is diversity and inclusion, and then the next value, which is community, where one way to look at it could be that these two are very similar in terms of diversity and inclusion and community in terms of the values. But I would ask you to look at the behaviors and definitions to see how we're distinguishing it. We did have a recommendation that we might want to change the order of the values to separate diversity and inclusion and community in the lineup. And that And if you all have a recommendation for what should be the order of the values, then we'd love to hear that today. And because those are things that are easy for us to change. And then finally, the last is commitment. And I want us to pay attention to the second bullet because we've probably had the most conversation around that in the use of the word conflict. And we talked about debate, we talked about problem solving as alternative words, but there is a lot of work that's been done that's just coming into higher education about the concept of positive conflict, that healthy teams are the ones that can encourage conflict. And so if you think about, you may have heard of conflict resolution, you may have heard the term used before. What we want to do through the development programs that we're going to have, leader development programs that we're going to have on campus, is we want to start working through a model that uses conflict and commitment and trust and accountability and results all in the same model. So the way that it's written currently has all of those elements in it. The results are the deliver excellence, but it starts with a foundation of trust, which we have that we've included in diversity and inclusion. The last bullet says build a foundation of trust. So I'll explain more as we get into this, and happy to answer your questions. So just a reminder, we're going to start going. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. These are the things that we want to just keep as that I'll be listening for and maybe reminding you of what the criteria are that we'll use to make changes. But let's go ahead and open this up. And as you speak, we'll look in the chat, but also if you would just open up your video so we can see you and we can have the discussion as we go back and forth. And feel free to just unmute and comment as we're going through this. So for the rest of the session, we'll refer to the values that you downloaded off the chat, and we'll go through that. And let's go ahead and start with integrity. And I'd love to listen to any of the comments that you all may have on integrity. Is there anything that you could see where we could either make it more concise or more clear? And what about the one we added, the bullet that was added last week, doing the right thing when no one is looking? Is that clear, or would we want to add anything? This says doing the right thing when no one is looking. What about when people are looking? So is there a way to add something that would be inclusive of all times? Alexis, I'm really happy to see that you joined us today. What are your thoughts on integrity and the behaviors that we have?
I think it might be beneficial to add, I guess maybe a clarifying word or two about doing the right thing all the time, not just when no one's looking. But you would think that would be a given, but if we're being so clear and concise with everything else, that might be a good addition.
So all the time, do the right thing all the time when no one. What if we put the word even? Doing the right thing even when no one is looking.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
Is there a better word than that? Paul Hamilton, any thoughts on this one?
I like adding even. I think that's a very clear distinction and inclusive.
Okay, Andrew, thanks for writing that in there. So everybody look at that and let's see if we're okay with it. Maybe you can either do a thumbs up and let us know if this is the way we want to go. All right. Okay. Then let's thank you. Thanks, Candace. Thanks, Sally. Okay, let's go to the next then. Significance. Legacy of dynamic impact. Be inquisitive, foster future growth of self and others. We added of self and others for fostering future growth because I think the original thought, and Sam, and let me, I want to make sure that you all know that Flora is heading up our Values Council. Sam Spooner and Joelle Sexick are on the council. We also have today Becky Bracken, who is facilitating behind the scenes and keeping everything running for us. And making sure that I stay on track. So thank you all for your help. Sam, let me ask you, the foster future growth, and when we added of self and others, can you explain that, why we added that, please?
To be more specific in the question of foster future growth, they're wondering whether the university is it an individual, is it the student only? It's actually of yourself and anyone else that is part of the institution.
Great. So there's the self-responsibility and a responsibility of what we're doing to help others, including the institution, the organization. Okay. Anything else that we would want to add to any of these to make it more clear or to raise the goal, raise the standard?
Steve, would you mind sharing a little bit more about success versus significance?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for. There, and you're going to find again that you're going to hear a lot about the word significance as we move along our journey. There's an author named David Brooks that General Hawkins referred to at the summit, and those of you who were there may remember this, and that is that that it speaks to the first part of our lives when we're focused on accumulation of things, good things. This is a good thing. We accumulate our degree. Many of us get married, or we have children, and we buy homes, we buy cars, and we measure our success based on those things. We get promoted along the way, and we move up from assistant to associate to full professor, and on staff positions, we get a chance to have more responsibility. And this mountain that we climb, this first mountain of success, is an important part of our life. As we move through our lives, we start finding that giving back becomes even more important. And that's when we climb the second mountain of our lives, and that's the mountain of significance versus success. And what General Hawkins was talking about was, how do we get focused? And what if, as an institution, we could start saying that what we're building for others is as important as what we've built for ourselves? And what if we could leave our legacy of dynamic impact by that legacy being one of significance? So even the icon, we had an artist with us that was at the summit for the whole time, listening to the conversations, and then offered us choices of icons that we could select for each value. So if you look at the icon that goes with significance, it's about this lifelong journey that we're on that leads us even above and beyond success. Flora, anything you would add, or what did I miss on that?
That I think that pretty much captures that. But one of the reasons that foster growth of self and others was added is because we wanted to try to convey how significance relates to being able to help others, lift them up and help them grow. So anything that you all have, any ideas, any suggestions, as you look at the other behaviors, the embrace opportunities and ignite innovation. Now that you have a little bit more of the background about significance and what that means, we would love to develop the others as well, the other behaviors, to better reflect and capture the essence of how important how significant significance is, and about the value that it brings to others. So does anybody have any suggestions about that? And if you're a little shy to speak, you can always put it in the chat, but we welcome input.
Yeah, I love you adding that, Floor, and I really believe that we may be able to do something like we did with Foster Future Growth. Um, is there something we could add for Ignite Innovation or for any of these?
Hey, Steve, this is Jeff Sefcik. I appreciate what you guys have done. I've not really been involved in this. I've read through this some, but I had one thought, and I'm not real sure if it fits in community or commitment. But one of the things that I think each one of us have probably seen from time to time, even though we're all a group of one big university, you know, each of our departments have different functions, and we don't always know what a lot of the others do. And it seems like there's been times when when a student may need something or a parent may need something, and because we don't know what others do enough, then we can't help them the way we want to. Or we may not always be as positive if we've had a bad relationship with another department through for whatever reason, and and then this parent or student's questioning something going on there, we may not be as positive as we probably should because we are all part of the RAM fam. And I didn't know if positivity or something along those lines was kind of included in here. Again, I don't know if that's under community or commitment. And I think that ASU is truly it is a great place to work. We've had that distinction for a long time. But I think that there's always ways we can improve, and I don't know if there's something like that could be included in here, so that just because and sometimes I think I don't want to use uneducated. I wouldn't say ignorance or anything like that, but we just don't know what other departments do that much of, and so there could be some education in here too. I don't know. You know, I may be rambling on about something really crazy, but that was just some thoughts I had as I was reading through these.
Well, Jeff, if it's rambling, I think it's good rambling. And what I would ask is, let's hold that and let's look at community, and perhaps either the first or fourth bullet under community may give us that opportunity to modify to add the sense of positivity. Or I'm not sure how we get the piece. I need all of your help to try to figure out about different departments we may not know. How do we capture that? Because what we're really doing is we're codifying the values and that already exist among the team, and we're putting specific, for the first time in our 93-year history, we're actually writing up the behaviors that we want to exhibit to live our values. And when it comes to, of all the things on this sheet, what's most important are these specific behaviors, because that, in fact, is what we're going to hold ourselves and each other accountable to. So if we can make sure that this is representative of all of us, of what we want. So I think when we get to those behaviors, we could figure that out. So Jeff, if you're okay, let's go to diversity and inclusion, and then we'll talk about your point when we get to community. Does that work? Thanks. Okay. So
Steve,
again, yes.
This is Bradley Petty. I wanted to add one thing on significance, if I could.
Please do.
The last bullet where it says ignite innovation, the first thing I think of as ignite is set something afire, you know. So in that, what if we used maybe inspire? Because something like that tends to have an action for both the person who is doing the innovation as well as the community to inspire them to do that. Maybe something like that.
Hey, thank you, Bradley. Let's talk about that. And Jennifer Fisher, would you also, let me ask you, because in the chat you said ignite innovation and communication. What do you think about inspire versus ignite?
I think inspire, I like ignite better because it just kind of, to me, it's just a nice word, but in inspire, it might not happen, and ignite, it's like it's happening and we're actually innovating and communicating together. Whereas inspiring, it could happen, but also at the same time, you could get uninspired or it might not happen. So I like Ignite because I feel like we're actually putting it into action.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thanks. And Anthony Battistini, would you comment on this one too, please? Saw you nodding your head, so I just didn't know what.
Oh, I agree that I like Ignite. I think Ignite has more of a, something is going on, it's burning, it's going forth. Inspire is like Jennifer said, kind of vague.
Okay.
Steve, if
Others.
I'm sorry. Like Anthony, thank you, Anthony, for your comment over in the chat. Anthony said, I agree. I like the idea of making these bullets more specific, but I do not currently have ideas for wording. I just wanted to point out, right now we're starting the process, but if at any point you come up with words, you can put them in the chat or even email them later. So we understand that we're discussing and the word or the phrase might not quite be there. We hope you'll continue to think about it and continue to give that feedback to us. So thank you, Anthony, for putting that in the chat because that spurred that thought. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Steve,
Yeah, that's great. Yes.
This is Becky. There's another comment in the chat from Tyler. Should we put something somewhere about how instilling these values are important, not just for current students, but instilling these so they carry on for future generations?
Great. Okay, so Tyler, we're going to get to your point as well. Let's see if we can't resolve, at least for this session, the Inspire versus Ignite. How about if everybody just types in which word you prefer, Inspire or Ignite? We'll just do a quick count and we'll go from there. And Sam, if you would just or Sam, Joel, and Flora, just take a look at the counts as they come up. And we'll move on and we'll come back to the Ignite versus Inspire portion of this. Also, on the communication comment, we've got communication up in integrity. And I just want to make sure that, and I think we've got it somewhere else as well. So we've got it also on the third bullet under diversity and inclusion. So let's see if that's enough as we go through. And we'll come back to it. All right. Do we have any consensus yet on Inspire versus Ignite? If not, we'll take it forward into future town hall meetings with that question mark as well.
Ignite seems to be they're still coming in, but seems like Ignite seems to be the majority. Is that what y'all are seeing, Sam? Joel?
That's what I'm saying.
Great. I think we can still bring it up.
Charlotte Adam brought up a very good point as well, is that Ignite ties into our motto, ignite the light.
Okay. So Bradley, it may be just how we talk about it and making sure that we avoid the explosion or a negative connotation, that we really keep it focused on and remind ourselves that ignite the light is part of what we're doing. Okay, let's go to diversity and inclusion. Embrace and build on our differences. If you would look through that, and let's see if there's some things that we can do to improve on this one. Jennifer Fisher, if you don't mind, one more time, your thoughts about, you had recommended Ignite Innovation and Communication under significance. We've got it here under diversity and inclusion. I love what I'm interpreting as ignite communication, to take an action to move forward with that. What are your thoughts after seeing these other two behaviors?
For Which ones are you talking about?
Well,
I'm so sorry.
we're under diversity and inclusion right now. So seek to understand, encourage, and empower courageous and honest communication. Does that get to what you were talking about when you said ignite innovation and communication?
I think it dives deeper into communication on how you communicate. Just you ignited that conversation, and now let's take it even further and let's really get into it. So that's how I take it, because you're trying to seek to understand that communication and encourage that dialogue back and forth. And it also goes into when you were talking about healthy conflict as well.
So would you want it in both places?
I think it could work either way, but it might work better if it's ignite innovation and communication, but then you might be repeating yourself over and over again.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on this? Okay, anything else under diversity and inclusion? We added build a foundation of trust. Okay, then let's go to community, and we'll come back now to Jeff's point about, is there a place to add positivity in this, where if that is missing from the rest of the sheet, could we add it here? Charlotte, can I get your comments on this? What are your thoughts?
On the community piece?
Yes, please.
I feel like we already epitomized everything that is mentioned here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you guys have, once this journey is ended, you'll either have started on or will have a what Jeff was referencing, a way to communicate these and then hopefully to instill them at every pretty much phase of our life cycle, from starting that communication at the perspective level and all the way through the donors. So that part of the communication piece, I think, will come. But I think for the most part, most of these, I think there's always degrees of where we are. I always believe we can be better than we are. I'm not as good at celebrating what we've achieved. So I'm always looking at, okay, what can we do better? I think establishing a framework of what that scale is, because everyone looks at things differently. I had put in the comment earlier, do the right thing. Well, first of all, I think we assume that everyone would want to do the right thing, but everyone has a different perception of what the right thing might be. And so to tie into what Jeff was talking about, it's the communication of that and that accountability piece and understanding where someone's coming from, as long as they're not performing what's clearly written and doing things that are illegal or that are immoral. I mean, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about other types of things that could have different perceptions, but that's just living out the values at that point. And I know that y'all are going to kind of share how we hope to do that moving forward.
Terrific. Thank you for that. I like one of the things you said that we may want to look at that I'm not sure we've got captured anywhere, is celebrating what we achieved. Sure, I'm not good at it either, and I want to be better. I think it's good. One of the first things you said is you think we're already doing this, and that and I believe that this does capture who the Ram Fam is. Remember that at the end of the day, once we go final on whatever flyer we're going to have, The appropriate question we should all ask is, so what? So we have a values flyer. What are we going to do about this? How are we going to ensure that we're living these in our daily work? So it's actually the implementation, it's the integration of our values into our daily work. And the fact that we have things in here that we're already doing is a good thing. That's why at the top of the flyer it says core values. These are who we are. One of the things we do with the values is we integrate them into our hiring processes, so that as we hire people, as we promote people, we're promoting those people who have a track record of living our values as related by the behaviors. And when we hire someone, we don't hire them and then teach them our values. I recommend that we hire people who already have those values. Then it's a natural fit. If you think about people that you have worked with, let me ask, just show of hands, have you ever been part of a hiring process, or you saw somebody get hired on your team and within a year or two, you just didn't want to work with that person again? You would have thought it might have been a hiring mistake. Has that ever happened? You know, maybe not at Angelo State, but somewhere else, that there's a hiring mistake. Well, think about the fact that we usually hire people because we screen for their education, if that's relevant. We screen for their experience, and we screen for competencies and skills. And if a year later we found that we have a hiring mistake, it's not because, how often is it because they lost their education, or they lost their experience, or they lost their skills? What's the biggest reason that you don't want to work with somebody? You know, typically people would say it's behavioral. They're just mean. You just don't like working with them. They're bullies, or they're hard to work with, or something like that. What if we screen for that up front? Because if you look at this sheet, and if these are the characteristics that we're now looking for, in addition to education, experience, and competencies, then maybe there's a chance that we'll work with people and keep them on board longer. We'll have less turnover, and that affects our productivity, and it affects the overall cost to the organization as well. Turnover is expensive. So I think that understanding how we're going to use these values becomes important. I think two questions now. Jeff, where would you, now that you've had a chance to look at this, where would you add your idea of positivity? That's one question. And two, is there a place, we've got serve others and extend genuine acknowledgement and recognition. Is there a way to strengthen this to have what Charlotte talked about celebrating what we achieve?
You know, after listening to some more and looking at this closer, I think that the positivity probably needs to go down more to commitment, because it's more about ourselves, and it affects the community, I think. But I think it's more about ourselves, and being positive may end up needing to be down under the commitment. You know, I was looking at the second bullet about constructive conflict. I don't know, you know, I don't know if you have a limit on how many bullets you have under each one of these. I'm sure you try to keep it manageable. But I think staying positive in any situation helps everybody involved. So I think it actually fits under commitment better than it would under community.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
Well,
Jeff,
yeah.
what do you think about it? Shoot. What do you think about it fitting under the definition of significance, legacy of dynamic impact through positive actions? It's the thought, listening.
I mean, that sounds kind of cool too. And it's really, to me, it's not just positive actions. It's what you come across as a person. I mean, and I know that half the people on this call are the half full and half empty glass type people, but it's the way we portray that out to others.
How about positive influence versus actions?
Yeah. I like that word better.
So Sam, you're saying legacy of dynamic impact and positive influence? Is that what you're
Through positive influence.
through positive influence? Okay. And then another place.
Or by positive influence, either one, through or by.
Okay. Does anybody, good. And then we'll look at it in commitment as well. Does anybody have anything else for community? And Dallas, thank you. Dallas says, I like the positive influence statement. Okay, then let's move to commitment. And as we look at that, Sam, would you read, because we made an adjustment, and would you read that, the second bullet, please?
Encourage healthy conflict for effective. Sorry, I lost it too.
For effective problem solving?
Yes.
So encourage healthy conflict for effective problem solving. There's another place that the adjective healthy, is that what we want? Is positive stronger than healthy?
Yeah, so that's not what's on the website. So read that again, Sam.
All right, I got it here. It's encourage healthy conflict for effective problem solving. I know it may say healthy on the website, but should say healthy twice. Should say encourage healthy conflict for effective problem solving.
And that should be on the one that we downloaded from the chat, not yet on the website.
The one on the chat was missed it had healthy twice. So what it should say is encourage healthy conflict for effective problem solving.
Okay. And then Tyler Blunt, would you unmute, and if you would, come on and if you would talk to us about your thoughts, please.
About what I commented, or
about what you commented about future and.
well, I mean, I just think that, you know, just with these values, I think it's something we shouldn't just instill just for, you know, our current, you know, community. It should be for basically an ongoing progression, because I'm a type that likes to think ahead, and I just think that, you know, if we instill these values, you know, they'll continue on for future generations, you know, to come, and I just think that's important to do in this case.
I agree. And, you know, to Jeff's question, can we put another bullet? We've certainly got room under commitment. We could add one. If there's something, if somebody could come up with the phrase of something that talks about future generations, may even be a way to put positive influence, you know, to leave I'm not sure if it would go here or significance, but there may be something about future generations. Maybe it falls better with significance. It would be long, but legacy of dynamic impact through positive influence for future generations. That may be a little wordy and a little bit long, especially considering that it was the significance team at the summit that was most concise. But anybody have thoughts? Anybody have a way to be able to capture this better?
I do like somehow tying the positive influence with the future generations. That does sound good if you can come up with the wording. That's definitely not my forte.
Okay, we'll write that down, and then Sam, let's play around with that one. The next meeting that we have, let's see if we can't figure out how to incorporate those ideas and where it fits best. Significance versus commitment. Maybe under significance, we may want to add another bullet, or we may want to do this with the definition. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And Steve, I had one other one because you mentioned celebrate achievements, and under significance, we talk about embrace opportunities. I think that'd be a good place to add it. Embrace opportunities and celebrate achievements. That covers both the things we grasp and are looking that's been handed to us or that's out there for us. And then did we achieve or celebrate our achievements as well? I don't know what everybody's thoughts are on that, but it just came to my mind as we were talking.
And Shara, I realize your intent may not have been to actually change a behavior, but when you commented on that, what are your thoughts if we did that? Embrace opportunities and celebrate achievements under significance.
I think it's probably a good addition. I think we do need to celebrate those milestones. It draws us together, like surviving COVID and all that entailed. Really, there's nothing like hardship to bring a group of individuals together, but I don't feel like we've realized there's an end date because it doesn't feel like there's one, but we've done and accomplished so much. And so I think that would be a great addition.
Okay, terrific. Julie Ruthenbeck, your thoughts on the whole process here?
I like the process. I'm enjoying hearing everybody's thoughts, and I'm trying to look up different terms for things like conflict, and I'm also wondering if I have the right version that I'm looking at, because I'm looking at a couple different versions, so I'm feeling kind of a little lost while I explore. But I'm enjoying this process and hearing everybody's thoughts and how we're dissecting words and bringing things together at the same time. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Anybody else? Ways for us to make this better for you? So there's an author named Patrick Lencioni. I'm looking to see if I'm going to show you where some of this comes from, because one of the things that General Hawkins has asked me to focus on in my role supporting you as Chief People Officer is to focus on people development programs throughout the organization. And so I'm going to show you this book, and then I'll try to show you the model where this comes from that has the word conflict in it. So this is a book titled The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Have any of you read it? If so, and Meredith, have you read the book?
Yes, I have. It's been a hot minute, but yes, I have. It's been a while.
And I understand the hot minute piece. So there's a pyramid that's in here. But when Lencioni writes books, he puts a provocative title on it. Like one of them is called Death by Meeting. And it's about how to run effective meetings. There's another one that says Getting Naked. But what it's about is it's about learning how to be vulnerable, which builds trust. And so in this one, it's really about how can we build effective teams. And so the model that he gives us is based on these 5 things that we have to do. And it's that pyramid model. What he says is the base of the pyramid as you go up. The first thing we have to do is we have to eliminate the absence of trust. So we build trust. And that when teams come together, or even in the middle of a team, even a team that's been around for a long time, any of us can at any point start to build more trust. And if we will, that trust is what allows us, it serves as our foundation to get through the next conflict, or the next dysfunction, which is fear of conflict. That our problem is not that we disagree with each other. The problem is learning how to talk about how we can agree. But that when we have conflict, which is a conflict of ideas, it's not that we don't like somebody. That's not the issue. The point of conflict is it's how do we get through this conflict of ideas? I think we should do something this way. You think we should do it a different way. A third person thinks something else. How do we get those ideas out so everybody has a chance to give input? If I want to know whether or not your team is healthy around this idea, what I'll do is I'll watch a meeting. And when somebody says, okay, well, what questions do you have? Or what comments do you have? And all we get is crickets. Then what I'm concerned about is what happens after the meeting. And if we have meetings after the meeting, so nobody says anything that's going to be have conflict during the meeting, but after the meeting, we all pair up and we close doors and we go behind closed doors and say, can you believe what Soslan just said? That's about the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And it probably was, but I would have benefited had you said that in the meeting. And hopefully our trust would be strong enough that I would say, help me with that. Help me get better. Explain to me what it is that's off base. And then when you explain that, I get a chance to improve. The whole team gets a chance to give their input, and we come up with something that's more effective. And we don't go off on the wrong path. So that's where healthy conflict comes in. And if we can figure that out, and we'll work on it. Maybe it's not an issue at all for any of our teams in the Ram Fam. But if it is, then it will allow us to have a higher degree of commitment. And that's the next level of the pyramid, is its lack of commitment, is when we get everybody to give their input. It's not that everybody gets their way. It's not that we make the changes that everybody wanted, but by having the dialogue, we're able then to say at the end of it, I had my say, I heard other people's opinions, and I thought, at one point I thought I liked Inspire better than Ignite, but the group went with Ignite. I'm going to be committed to that because I had my say. So then we get to commitment, and then the next one is avoidance of accountability. Once we all have a commitment, we know what to hold each other and ourselves accountable to. And the final one is inattention to results, that by going through this process, we're going to have better results. When people see my job title, Chief People Officer, they assume that I'm all about touchy-feely things. The truth is, I have an engineering degree and background, and my first career was in the military, and for most of my life, nobody's ever accused me of being touchy-feely. I have a deep care and concern about people and creating a safe environment that allows all of us to do our very best work. And that's what I'm trying to do with you, is to allow you to have your core values be representative as the way we're all going to live and commit to live. And if we can do that, then we can all achieve the goals that we want personally and as an organization. I believe that conflict is positive. So I just wanted the opportunity to be able to explain where it comes from. So we've gotten through the flyer. Flora, what else should we, anything else for us to cover today?
Yes, Dave, I'd like to just point out something in the chat. Anthony Battistini said, as an HSI with over 40% enrollment of Latinx students, was there consideration of including any Spanish words as values or descriptors in this document? Tracy Baker said she thought it was a fantastic point. So that's a good point, Anthony.
May I ask a follow-on question and get Anthony's response to this as well? So I've worked with other organizations where we had an English version and a Spanish version of the values flyer. Does that help or hurt for us? And what it requires is not somebody that obviously uses Google Translate, but because we've got to get the nuance. So we need a group of people that would work on this. But what if when we publish, we actually have both versions?
I think that's definitely, I would hope that we would do that so that both documents would be available online. I do think though, if you're wanting, English speaking people who are coming into the university to better understand that they should be also that the Spanish community is an important factor at our university, then having the Spanish word appear in the English form says something more than just, like we want to do this for everybody, or it's more than just the translation or needing to translate the word. I think having it in the document then makes it more important to the values of the university.
Well, I love that. So can you think, would you do this? Would you look at opportunities for that? See where you find that we might be able to do that, and post that on our website. And we've got a place for that. And help me with this. Is it values_journey@angelo.edu? Sam, is that our email address? Becky, can you
Yes,
put that in chat? And then Anthony, if you don't mind, if you would help us, we'll also start looking at that. And I think that that's even more powerful than just the translation. So let's commit that we'll do the translation, but let's also look for words that would make sense that could power up our core values. Anybody, are there any other languages in addition to Spanish that we should do that with? Okay, great. Well, this has been a powerful session in terms of the richness of the conversation. Thank you all for participating in this. Again, any other suggestions you have, please email us at values_journey@angelo.edu. Sam posted that in the chat room. And and if you would also be advocates to ask other people to participate in these sessions. Flora, when's our next session?
We have another town hall, and the next one will actually be an in-person town hall that would be tomorrow from 3 to 4 p.m. at the Cabinets building. And so Cabinets 100, if you all can please spread the word, tell others about it. We're very, very grateful that you're here. We understand how busy everybody is, especially at this time of the semester. So for you to take an hour of your day to join us, it's very valuable. I want to convey there might be people that say, well, I really don't have anything to say. I don't have any suggestions. We still want people to know, to get a grasp for values, for the journey, and for what we're doing. So even if someone doesn't have anything necessarily to contribute, we want them to hear what others have to say and what's happening. So thank you so much for joining. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the Cabinets building, Cabinets 100.
I look forward to being on campus and seeing you tomorrow. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you again.